Okay, so we have our door closed and open states in Bolt here, but now we need to make the close and open animations. And so there's, we could write code. There's a lot of ways to make this door work. We could write code that moves it. We could animate it. We could deal with it with Bolt. Um, but I think, doing it with an animation is a good way to show how you can um, interface between Bolt and the animation system. And if you've never used the animation system, you get a little experience with that too. So I'm going to go to Window, Animation, and we're going to get the animation window open here. I'm going to dock it down in the bottom as well. And we want to add a animation to this portcullis door. You can see it says to begin animating it, create an animator and an animation clip. I'm curious if I hit create here, if it will go ahead and add an animator component to this object. Normally, I guess I would just add the animator manually, but let's see if this saves us a step. That would be kind of neat. And so animations are another new type of asset. So if you don't already have an animation folder, you should go ahead and create that. And we're going to start by making, I guess, what I will call closed idle. That's going to be our first animation that we make. So I'll save that. And I'm curious, look, check that out. So by clicking that button, not only did it create an animator component on this object that I had selected when I clicked it, but it also created this animation controller named after the object, which is pretty neat as well. So if I were to double click on this, you'll see it's going to look pretty similar to our Bolt state machine, essentially, except this animator window is only going to be used for animation states as opposed to like logic states. So if somehow the animator window didn't open for you when you double clicked on this animation controller that got automatically created, you could always go to Window, and under the animation section here, you can choose Animator, and that'll add this one. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and dock that one down here too. So we're starting to get quite a collection of windows down docked at the bottom of the screen. Let's go back to the animation window first. And so let's go ahead and create this actual animation. And so this system is like a keyframe based system. So you could use this timeline, add a keyframe, and animate all sorts of properties. You can animate position, which is what we're going to do for this animation. So I'm going to choose add property here, and we have to decide what we're going to animate. But it's important to understand you can animate like all kinds of things. You can animate color, you can animate scale, you can animate most of the properties in your components here. So keep that in mind. It's a pretty powerful, robust system. But for our simple door situation, we just want to animate the position. But actually, I chose the wrong one. Go ahead and remove this. We really want to be animating the door child object here. So I do want the animation on my parent here, but when I go to add property, I need to go find this door child object, and then this is the thing that we actually want to move. So go ahead and make sure you add the door child objects transform position. And now you can see we get 2 keyframes just to start with. So if I were to click on the second keyframe here, and I think by default it's just a 1-second animation. If I were to click on the second keyframe and say type in a new value for the Y, we could say just like 10. You can see it went way up there. But I just want to show you kind of how this works. Now automatically Unity is going to, you can edit how these curves work, but by default it'll choose a curve and like linearly, I think, animate the difference from starting here and going there. So that is one way you could do the animation. And by adding lots of keyframes, you could make this more complicated. But there's another way we can do a simple animation for something like a door where there's like clearly two states. And that's where if we just make a single frame that defines the state and transition from one animation state to the other. So I'm going to delete that second keyframe. This keyframe I want to make sure is not at y equals 10. It should be at y equals 0. So that's the closed state. And you can test it. If you just hit play, you'll see that it looks like it's closed, which isn't going to be a big difference because it's kind of started off closed. So for this type of animation, we want our door to just be closed. And that's kind of what closed idle is meant to mean here. It's just the idle pose of a closed door, nothing too fancy. While we have this object still selected, we can click this drop down and make a new animation. And you're going to make sure you're still in this animations folder. Really, I should have probably made a folder called, like, I don't know, and then put the animations inside of it like that, just to stay a little more organized, because eventually you might have all kinds of animations for lots of different objects. And so we'll call this one open idle. And I'm going to add a property for the door transform. Actually, I'll show you a neat way to not do this. So let's say we don't know exactly what property we're looking for in here. One thing that's kind of cool you can do is you can hit this record button and you'll see this kind of turns red. And this means that like the next thing we do, if it's related to this object that has the animator on it, like if it's on this object or its children, we will get a property automatically added with a keyframe that contains the change that we added by moving stuff or typing values here. So once I have record hit and I have the door selected, if I just with the move tool here drag the Y up, you can see, so I'll just drag it wherever I want it to go to. We'll say right here. You can see that we automatically got the keyframe with the door position properties Y value animated. And again, I only want a single keyframe for this open idle. It's just like one frame that represents the open state. So I'm going to turn off the record button before I accidentally click something else. And we can kind of verify that our animations are doing what we want. So here's closed. I'll hit play and it looks closed. Here's open. I'll hit play and it looks open. Next, I guess we can work on transitioning from open to closed so that you get like this smooth animated look. But for now, we know that the animation states are correct. And so at this point, we can go ahead and click on our animator. And the animator gives you a view of an animation controller. And so when we first clicked on our animation window and there was that button that said to animate this, click create, and it automatically added the animator component to the door. Well, every animator needs to have an animation controller, and it just automatically created this, which I kind of remarked about was kind of neat. But just so you understand, if you click on this, you'll see that it put the animation controller in this animations folder. I thought I moved this in here, but I guess it didn't work. So I'm just going to move these things. Oh, look. I guess maybe it was a bad idea to move that in Windows Explorer and not in Unity. That's kind of scary. I'm going to hit Save Project and see what's going on. That's scary to me. Let's look at GitHub. I feel bad. I've made this way more complicated than it needs to be. Where is this file? So it's actually there. I think it might be a good idea maybe to like save and reopen Unity, because when I move this in the File Explorer window, it looks like Unity doesn't understand that it's moved, and so there really is no file here. If I look and right click Show and Explorer inside of animations, oh yeah, there is a closed idle here. So is there one here too? And there's one here too. So that's kind of screwed up. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video and reopen Unity and fix this. I guess I'll just leave the video on so you can see what it does. So I think if I close Unity and then, I'm wondering if I should delete the I'm wondering if I should delete the meta files or move it, or let's just try like putting them in the recycling bin here just in case. We'll see what happens, because I think they exist here too. Hopefully I don't just lose my whole animation. We'll find out. Let's reopen Unity here. Okay, so Unity's back. My animations are both in here. I think if I double click them, so it looks like I lost my closed animation, which is kind of a bummer. It would really suck if it was a serious animation that had a lot of work into it. But I guess the moral of the story here is when you move things around, especially animations, it's probably a good idea to do it within the Unity project window and not in the File Explorer window like I did. That got this all out of sync and messed up. The other takeaway is that these animations only save when you hit File, Save Project, and that's when it gets like written to the file system here, and you could commit it if you wanted. So I don't know, 2 caveats with this system. So my closed animation here is just kind of like broken, so I'm gonna delete it, and I'm gonna go back to my game object here, go to my animation window, and recreate the closed animation, which fortunately is very simple. And this time I'll be careful to make sure I've put it in this new folder. And so again, this guy, all we need to do is animate. I could like hit record and move it, but I don't really want it to move anywhere. It should just be exactly where it is. So I'm just going to manually add the door. I almost messed up again. I need to add the door transform position. And then I'm gonna, you can see it gave me 2 keyframes, but I don't really need 2 keyframes. I just need 1. So this is a single frame animation. It's all the longer it is. And if I hit play, it just looks like it's closed. If I go back to open, I hit play, it looks like it's open. So we're back in business. I'm going to save my project and my scene just so I don't mess it up again. And like I said, I've definitely made this more complicated than it needs to be. So sorry about that. Anyway, when we go and make these new animations like this, the whole thing I wanted to show you is that the animation controller did get created. If I double click it, it's going to open in the animator. And so when I made those animations, it automatically made states for them. And I just want to double check that this is actually plugged in, and it is. Okay. So not only did it make a state for it, but it has that animation plugged in. If you look at the project window, if I click that, you can see it's pointing to this guy. So same thing with open. We have an open here, but since I made closed first, closed is the default state. So we're really getting a lot of this state machine flowchart stuff here. And that's just because it's a good way to visualize states. So when the game starts, it goes into this closed position. That's going to be the default position. You could make this one the default if you wanted, but we want it to start closed. And so then we need a way to go from closed to open, and we need a way to go from open to close. So I'm just right clicking and hitting make transition and selecting the state I want to connect to. Now we had to decide when and how we do these transitions, and so it's maybe a little seems duplicitous to have this state machine and this state machine, but I guess the way we're using this is that this state machine is strictly for visuals, animations, and this state machine is going to be the logic that decides when and how this door opens or transitions from the states. And the states will say, when you're in this state, play this animation. So they'll be kind of interconnected. All right, so before we start working on the transitions, I'm just going to go ahead and stop this video. So let's make a commit, and we will just say added, created, open, and closed animations. I guess I can be a little more specific. Created door, open, and closed animations. Let's go ahead and commit and push. In the next video, we will work on the transition logic.